Good evening. You're listening live to the Xtreme Movie Show. I'm your host, Rob. Alongside me tonight is Professor Pixel. We are covering A Quiet Place 2, the John Krasinski sequel that's made a crap ton of money, which isn't surprising considering it followed off its smash surprise hit from that movie a few years ago, A Quiet Place. Pixel, I want to start off by just talking about A Quiet Place, the original movie, what we liked and didn't like. I'm notorious for being in the camp of saying it's an absolutely horrible trash movie that was really disgusting, and there was almost nothing positive about it. I'm still bothered to it by this day. That being said, what were your initial thoughts of the very first movie?
The very first Quiet Place movie, I don't think it's a trash movie. I was surprised by it. It's like you said, it was a surprise smash hit. And I think that it has some elements that are very intriguing. I don't think it's perfect by any means. I know some people will say, oh my gosh, this movie's so great. You don't have horror like this. No, you don't have horror like this for a good reason. But the first movie, it does have elements that I really do enjoy. And John Krasinski sadly did not make it from the first movie, because if he had, then, well, we know who we'd be following. But it's not his story. It's the deaf daughter's story. That's pretty much what we have to accept.
Yeah, so when A Quiet Place came out, the very first movie, there was a lot of buzz about, hey, can he successfully transition from comedy into quote-unquote horror? Because the first movie was not a horror film by any means, in my opinion. I think it was a mild blend of action and suspense, tops, and not done very well for a lot of reasons that I think actually carried on the second movie, which is why we're kind of reviewing the first here. To me, I did not really care for him as Jack Ryan. I don't think he looks bad in a suit. I think he's a good looking guy. I don't think he necessarily acts bad, but there's something about his expression with his eyes that almost looks sad at times, or when he's trying to look intense, and it doesn't work. And we can make all the office jokes that we want about Jim and Pam and all that stuff.
Maybe he died in the office.
Well, I mean, look, he got on the B12 vitamin water here from Florida. I'm guessing maybe he took like a sabbatical down here, put on 20 pounds of muscle naturally, I'm sure. So he beefed up and everything, but he doesn't. Sometimes when people blow up a lot like that and they walk around, they don't look like it's natural weight, and it doesn't look like they're used to carrying that weight. And that's kind of like the same thing with his facial expressions. With his beard and him being jacked up, he does look, athletic, and he was an athlete from what I understand. So for him to star in a movie called A Quiet Place, where he took it upon himself to have the story, get some people to write it, I give him a lot of credit for trying something different, reinventing himself, and running away from the office and not being typecast. So that's great. Bunch of check marks in his favor. Everybody seems to like him. Everybody loves his wife, Emily Blunt, who's in here. The fact that he has a deaf child or two or whatever in the first movie is it's not bad. So what do? Well, you have this alien invasion type sort of monster thingy that comes in, and you're like, okay, I could see where this is going. I could see what he's trying to do. You're like, there's an essence of something positive to do, right? The problem I had with the first movie was the suspension of disbelief was not made possible from the very opening scene, and some of the stupidity things to it. And I'm trying not to bash on the first movie and say, well, because the first movie sucks, the second one's going to suck, because that's not always the case. I actually think the second movie is better than the first one, but I still think it's a bad movie. So to me, just the whole dumb stuff of the sound and trying to figure out how they could survive, and decisions they made, and the father sacrificed himself, the way that the movie ended, the fact that they went ahead and got pregnant, I know pissed a lot of people off, and I'm in that category of going, it was a dumb decision, but it's. It was what it was. I'm not a fan of it. I'll stand by that. So I will say, going to the second movie, I know it was delayed because of COVID. I was interested to see what he would try to do with this. If he learned lessons from his first movie, of things he thought he didn't like or didn't want, or some feedback. But then again, it made so much friggin' money off a small budget. Screw you, fans. I can do whatever I want. So apparently he was the only one that could come up with an idea for this, because, he had the rights to it, made a metric fuck ton of money. So he's in that position of power. So what does he do? Hey, I'm going to expand the world. I'm going to show a little bit of a backstory and some other stuff to it. And he does develop that. And I will say that the strongest aspects of the second movie is the fact that he does build successfully on the first movie, even though I think the first movie's trash, this movie's bad. But he wanted to change some of the cinematography about it. So my initial impressions are it's not a good movie. It's better than the first. I will say that. I like what they actually tried doing in this film as far as the locations and some other things about it. And we'll talk about those here in a moment. But for me, initially, even though it's made a lot of money, I just still don't think it's a very good film at all. And part of it is, it's supposed to be horror, but it's a PG movie, and there's other stuff to it. But overall, not a very good movie. So you weren't crazy, it sounds like, about the first movie. What did you take of this second movie?
The second movie, well, with how the first one ended, I was worried about how they were going to keep going, because the first one, I know you don't like it, but it is fine on its own, and it ends in a somewhat bittersweet but satisfying way. This one, I was worried that was going to mess that up, and it kind of does, but I do think that it does build upon the world, which is what they want to do. Why? Because they're trying to turn this into a whole franchise. I believe they're doing a series based in this world, so they're trying to get this thing to go around. They're trying to milk it, which is fine. They made it. That's their prerogative. That's fine. But this movie itself I was surprised with how much I enjoyed it. Because I didn't expect them to successfully continue from where they left off and make it in such a way that we could truly enjoy it. But I was wrong, and I can admit when I'm wrong.
So yeah, let's talk about this second movie. Yeah, I agree with you. They're trying to expand the world, which I think was the right choice to go. I think a lot of it kind of still comes down to characters. It can be weak, thin on plot. Nothing really has to happen except for maybe you're trying to go from point A to point B, or maybe it's a situation. You don't even have to have plot if you like the characters enough. The problem with the first movie that, to me, I was really hoping that they would rectify is the incredible amount of stupidity and the dumb choices about the characters and what they would do. And in addition to that, we have to talk about the alien, the Force. Okay, we can talk about that it looks like something out of Stranger Things.
Yeah.
CGI monsters are in no way intimidating at all. It looks like crap. I think they showed them a little too much in the second movie, so it ruined that, rustle of the leaves, being afraid of what you can't see sort of thing to it. Totally did that in this movie. So there, again, no chance of horror at all for it. The monsters just aren't scary. And the idea that sound attracts them, but then a certain frequency repels them, everybody would have friggin' figured that thing out. It would not have taken a year and a half as we get into this movie for, the military or somebody, or, it was hard to turn off all those really bad, dumb things for it. And I thought that they would address some of that, or refine it in such a way so someone like me who thinks the movie was really dumb might go, okay, I'll buy that. I thought at least he would do that, but no, they kept it up in this film.
Yeah. Well, I'm gonna have to take this off road for a moment, because there was a video that I saw that asked, would you rather the Earth be invaded by the creatures from A Quiet Place, or xenomorphs from Alien? And I just have to say that these creatures, you're absolutely right. They aren't that scary. They're just from Stranger Things. They look just like that, and you could figure out about sound fairly quickly. Their hypersensitivity is their own weakness. But
yeah, it's dumb.
But the question of would I rather be invaded by them or a xenomorph is just stupid, because xenomorph is more threatening in every single way. But that's not what this conversation's about.
Well, and again, it's hard to do horror on PG, and I don't mean R in terms of blood, guts, and gore, because that's not horror, but you can do things with some of the shots or some of the implied material with it too. So like you were talking about how they're not really intimidating. Well, a kid can watch this movie and might be a little bit scared, but is anybody really scared? No. So where does the threat come from? And then when you don't have a threat that you can go, well, hey, they're scared. I can understand them making a bad decision, but continuously dumb ones like from the opening gambit of the first movie, moving on to other things, it's just foolish, and it really makes it difficult for a watcher to suspend their disbelief and be involved in it. Because one, the dumb decision making. Two, it's hard to make us like the characters because of the dumb decision making. It's also hard because in a movie that relies mostly on no language, literally, which I actually do appreciate the attempt of it. I like the idea of that. I certainly have no problems putting somebody that's supposed to be deaf and somebody that actually is deaf in a film. I think it's great. I really, really do. But the ability to construct a story around it that is mildly believable is where this has failed. And here in the second movie, what was disappointing is when I look at sequels, and I don't know how pertinent this is to it, but I immediately thought with this second movie, it's very rare that the sequel is better than the original. I do think the sequel is better than the original, and we're going to touch on some reasons here in a moment. When I watched the second movie, and I'm going to ask you your thoughts on this, I thought to myself, you know what? I could watch the second movie and not even having watched the first movie at all. Therefore, that's a problem. Some people might like being able to watch different movies and take whatever they want from them, but to me, you miss out. But watching this whole second movie, I didn't feel left out at all from the first movie. You could go watch the second movie right now, start to finish, and you would not have missed out on anything really that important. What do you think?
I mean, you are right, because they are able to quickly catch us up back to reality. They display, they show, they don't tell, they show exactly what they can do to stop these creatures and shoot them. But I think that's actually a strength. I know what you just said, and it absolutely has merit, because
the showing not telling part we'll get to in a moment, but the point is more of, to take it even a step further. Yeah. I think this second movie could have been the first movie, and the first movie could have been the second one. It would have made a lot more sense in this world. It would have made it a lot more interesting.
No, I disagree, because the first movie, like you said, was weaker. It's absolutely weaker than this film. And so if you start a series, let's say you started on a somewhat strong start with like this movie, and then you go down, that's not good. I don't think
I understand what you're saying as far as the arc, as far as the enjoyment level in a movie thing. But here's my reasons why, and we'll use this to start talking about the second film, because actually, I think in A Quiet Place 2, if you think about how The Quiet Place 1 opens up, dumb, nonsensical thing that you shake your head and go, man, this is stupid. Some people let that go and go, well, that doesn't bother me. But the bad decision making early on. We don't really know the characters. We learn the characters early on in the first episode. In the second movie here, though, we start off, to use your words, show, don't tell. One of the things allegedly that Krasinski wanted to have done in this film is the way it was shot, is they wanted to have a lot more long takes and action scenes, which I totally 100% love and on board with. And they used to, I think, film and they didn't digitize it per se, like digital film, which I think is a great choice. The opening gambit of this film is tremendous. It's absolutely fantastic. We see him literally walking, going to the store, picking up some small groceries. Just see him walking in a very long take out to the baseball diamond. Of course, no man needs to see his wife pointing at his watch. I thought that was very annoying. But other than that, you get to see the kids playing. You get to see whether it's a spaceship or meteorite or whatever it is, the thing in the sky. All this looks great, and it's a shit hits the fan kind of moment with their deaf kids. We're introduced to the characters. We are learning who they are by watching them in action. There's a little back and forth with the sign language, even if we don't know what all that means. Some of it's simple enough early on where we get it. Guess what? We now start to care about these characters, and we get emotionally interested, invested in them. Therefore, any scares or horror later on pays off, as opposed to the first movie where you have a dumb opening sequence that makes no sense and further gets magnified by dumb choices later on. If you had started this movie as the first movie with this opening gambit, you'd have been hooked, because after this, with everybody talking, there's a friend on the bench that they talk to, there'll be a main character in here. That's when they go quiet. I was like, hell yeah. I was really into the second movie, despite the fact I hated the first movie and thought it was really stupid. Your take on the opening gambit, sir. Let's just stop with that great scene.
Yeah, yeah. I like to seeing the actual invasion, as it were, was something I feel like really pumped up the film, because we didn't get a chance to really see life before, and so us being able to step back in time to right before it all went to hell, it gives us a moment to, like you said, truly connect to him. And in the first one, I will admit that at least I'm still not on board with switching the placement of the
The
movie.
idea is that you want to care about the characters, and the father's sacrifice in the first movie would have had a lot more impact and meaning had we been invested with them early on, as opposed to you know dumb decision after implausibly dumb thing going on. This opening gambit is exactly what you want to do. You see the mayhem in the town. You see how everybody's really close. It's not a big city. The first movie, when you get turned off early on, you start thinking of logistical things because you're thinking analytically, not emotionally. You're going, well, how is it the electricity still runs? How is it they're able to do this? How and then you keep going down this sucks hole until something can pull you out of it. But here, there's a scene where she's driving. She's got her kid. They're separated immediately, which makes it very, very difficult. You see her having to stop because you see this bus coming up and you see a monster get on it. She's hitting full reverse. I'm like, this is good. And she does good in action movies too, Emily. We've seen her do that before. And so she's believable in this role. This was just phenomenal. I was really hyped after this opening gambit, but unfortunately, the opening gambit had to end because I was thinking if the rest of the movie is like this, good on you, John. I'll definitely go see the third, but it made me almost question what the hell happened, because we've seen movies that have a great trailer, but then you watch the movie and you're like, well, where's this in the movie? It's trash, and here you're like, okay, what's going on? So, the movie after the opening gambit kind of goes in where the father's gone. She's got her baby. I get it. She's, the strong female type. She can do that. She's one of the few actresses I think that does a great job at it and is believable. She can be beautiful, competent, all those things. And her kids, though, kind of reminded me, speaking of Stranger Things, of, Dustin a little bit, or Lucas. I don't know what, just with their facial features.
Or
I kept going, wait a minute. Yeah, I was like, they both kind of look like
They
Dustin.
do look like they could be
male and female version.
brother.
But it's kind of like a continuous thing where you see the burning barn and stuff. And what I did like here was that I think it's more of a challenge to have horror in broad daylight. I like the fact that they have to make a decision now that they've got their kid of getting the hell out of there, because they see this fire off in the distance. And, you see the one kid up there on the silo checking things out. You see that there's stuff going on. I'm like, okay, I can buy this. Something bad happened. They need to take action. They're going to be responsible for what happens to them. I really, really like this. They start moving on a little bit. People that work on farms might see something about, well, how did the crops get planted if everybody pretty much died the year earlier and there wouldn't be this and that, and the whole walking on sand and where it comes from. I won't even talk about how stupid and dumb that is and how it takes away from the movie, because I did like that we don't know what's happening. They're traveling. They see a fire. They're walking towards it. They're carrying a baby, and they have an oxygen thing, which I'm like, oh, I get it. It's because, babies whine and cry, and, they've got the speaker. I'm like, okay, it's coming back to me. So despite how dumb the sound thing is, at least they're staying true to what it's supposed to be. And by the time they get to this little industrial park area and all that too, and accidentally set off some traps, I'm like, okay, again, not a horror movie at all. Nothing scary about this, but this seems to be a somewhat decent action kind of film up to this point here. Obviously, there's an accident. One of the kids gets stuck in a bear trap. We get to see what happens with the baby. We see the distraction with the speaker. So again, didn't have to see the first movie to see all this. And the guy they end up meeting that they run into happens to be the friend that they saw that was on the bench at the baseball game. And I think that's Cillian Murphy, who's usually a pretty decent actor. People like him, and I've always liked him too and stuff. He usually has a creepy vibe, so I don't know if he was going to get weird on the ladies here, but they have a little spot that they can get into, which serves for a big part of the movie. So as far as all this stuff goes, where's this movie taking you?
I'm not sure. We do have a Venkman in the backstage who's
I will come grab him while you continue.
But yeah, as for where we get to at this point, when he steps into that bear trap, because it's set up to keep out intruders, I guess. It I was feeling that scream. I felt it coming, and Emily Blunt has to cover his mouth.
A little Chucky there.
Please stop! Please stop! And he can't because he is in agony right there. But they do eventually get him out, and they handle the creature, which causes the former friend to get into action, coming down and helping them into his hidey hole.
Yeah. Well, RDV joined us backstage here too, as a part of the first time we saw this movie. And RDV, I know we have different opinions about the movies in general. I think this is a better one than the first one. I still think the movie sucks, but this movie I think definitely is an upgrade over the first one. I was curious to think, for you, did you think this movie was better than the first one? I mean, what's your take on it?
I'd say this one it loses the element of surprise. As the first one, you didn't know what was going on.
That's a good point. That's a really good point.
But I liked both movies. The first movie, I couldn't stand the little girl,
right?
Because she was, the way she acted. She was spoiled, the way she acted in the first movie. And I know, and then the kid in this movie, Glenn and the son, I would have just left him there to let him die, because look how he treated the kid. He left the kid alone because he wanted to go explore. I'm like, dude, do you not see that the baby's running out of oxygen? And I'll put the mask back on there, and that just killed me. I was like, if I were the mother, oh my gosh,
that was a bit assholey, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was. And he's crying. I can't breathe. He's panicking. I was like, that kid needs to go. I don't care. Bring back the little kid with the toy. He was less annoying than the first movie. I want to point out it's not a family friend. That's the dad's brother. Cecilia Murphy plays the brother.
Oh, is it his brother? Okay,
he's the uncle. And that's why she says. That's why he says to the
friendly.
daughter. He says, "I'm not." He says, "I'm nothing. I'm nothing. Nothing like him. Because she's and the daughter agreed. Because because the scene I love the most is when she goes off to follow the train tracks, because she knows that there's something out there. This is what her dad would do, and I thought that was it was kind of stupid of her to go alone, but she knows that her mom would not approve it. Her mom probably would have stayed there with them. It just. And plus the fact her mom wasn't thinking straight, because of the fact that she just lost her husband not even minutes before.
And just had a baby.
Yeah, and just had a baby. So she's worrying about the baby and all that stuff too. And she knows where medical supplies around town, but
she definitely has a lot on her plate.
Yes. So it really, I just a scene in there, the railroad track, and I disagree. This is a science fiction horror.
There's nothing horrific about it.
Just has jump scares. It's freaking aliens, dude.
Jump scares not horrific.
Well, I'm sorry, because you're old. You're desensitized to horror movies, bro. That's why.
Do you think the monsters in this movie are scary? No,
honestly, this felt like a Last of Us thing. Yes, those things are creepy. If you come across it, you're gonna you're not scary. As it eats you, as it kills you.
So you're saying you're scared by the monsters?
Yes. Okay. I would be scared by the monsters. Yes, the jump scares in this, dude. The train, because you don't know what's gonna happen on. Because she has the little device. If they figure out how to stop the things, but guess what though? As soon as you fire a gun, it draws more in. So there is no sure way to kill these things without drawing a whole bunch on top of you. As we saw it in the movie, even in the first movie. We had as soon as she fired that shotgun. You saw a whole bunch were running down the field at the end of the movie, and that's how I left it like that. So,
well, to be fair, the shotgun is the loudest weapon they could possibly use.
Yes, but even the handguns, those go for a mile. You can hear those things.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree. But there's going to be something later on in which where they're finally learning. You're learning.
But I love that scene. You get to see how the people are acting, especially when they get to the docks looking for boats. And then the guy throws a noose on Cecilia Murphy's neck, and it's all his cans and bottles hatched it. And he basically, they're gonna take the girl, do something diabolical evil to the girl. This guy's a creep. He's touching her. He got a knife to her. Takes her. And just the whole thing. So because he doesn't know sign language so much, he just kind of does the motion, dive in the water. and she sees that, and when he does that, he basically makes the noise, and it draws a whole bunch of the aliens coming. And this is where we find out the aliens can't swim, which I thought was actually kind of interesting, because I figured, like, okay, maybe these things can. We don't know that.
Well, it's a new facet of the creature, and so that is, I would say that's kind of like furthering, a little bit about the character, because to your point, it does lose the element of surprise. So, like, okay, that's a new fact that they can use to their advantage. That's cool to have.
But you learn that the aliens they adapt as they get toward the island. The aliens, yes.
So I feel like we need to go over a few things.
So these aren't dumb aliens. They do learn. They're not straight up.
Well, no, they don't. They don't. It's less learn, more. Oh, my boat got here, because they were on a boat that was going out towards the water, and it ends up there the next day after they find paradise.
So you're saying the alien just happened to stay on the boat and just ride it out?
Yes.
Oh, so that's just gonna go.
They couldn't get out.
It could have jumped back out.
Because they can't swim. They can't go in the water.
The one from the water, but the one jumped that boat could jump right back on the docks if it wanted to.
I know, but they didn't sail. It's not like they were rowing. Row.
No, I didn't say sail. No, he laid on the boat because of the current.
Yeah, the thing about the ocean is how loud it is, and these creatures work on sound. So the idea that they'd be anywhere near the water normally is just silly. But
they might be able to filter out stuff. You don't know. Superman. Let's say with Superman. Remember, he can't hear everything at once.
Well, the problem, kind of backing up here a little bit. When I was talking about the first movie with dumb decision making, that's, it's like I said, it's one thing to have a few bad decisions or decisions that aren't consistent with a character that you've known how to do it. Like, RDV, you did mention, jump scares. You mentioned the train scene. The scene I remember on the train is when, the girl's in there, she's getting like supplies or whatever like that, and the creature comes on. She's got a single barrel shotgun, and she fires. I'm looking at that going, I'm not a gun guy, meaning I don't know guns well, but that was very unbelievable to me. Yeah, she got saved at the last second.
We don't know. Whatever. Is she using bird shots? Or is she using 5 rounds? We don't know.
The fact that she's holding it wasn't even really braced with the other hand.
Well, yeah. I mean, remember, she's a kid. She's the first she's probably had the shotgun. She doesn't know how to fire it.
Yeah,
right. Of course she hits the beast, head on and all that. But it's just little things like that add up, and I'm bringing that to the point of what you guys are talking about now here, because I'll agree with you, RDV. There are some pretty good scenes in here, in that you're talking about, and you guys are arguing about the water going to the island. I think the whole idea of them going to the island is a great idea. We always talk about that in movies. Well, why don't people go to an island? But
it's what the thing is,
the thing is, in the first movie, with the sound. I agree with everything you're saying. We can argue about sound and the special frequency that repels them or whatever it is. But then the whole thing was, well, why didn't they just move to the river? Because they didn't, something there. So it's very inconsistent with this little bit of, logic. We're supposed to understand what happens in these things. And yes, revealing the fact that they can't swim is nice, because it's giving us a bit more of character of the bad thing here. But because they did it so poor in the first one, it makes us think about it.
You think about the first movie, when they went to the river of the sun, the kid was afraid they're going to hear him, but he can't hear because the water was running. It's loud.
Right, and that's a point in Pixel's favor about saying, why would they be anywhere near the ocean? I mean, there's just common sense things like that if you don't see the first movie and you watch the second one, you're not going to pick out, and that's where I go. Well, I was saying right before you jumped on, I definitely want your opinion about this. I think that the second one is definitely an improvement over the first one, which is rare for a sequel to do.
What's setting at the end? Like, they're near the ocean.
The point being is that if
because I never got the idea they were in the ocean. They're out by inland, where the creatures are.
Again, how can they be hypersensitive to sound and have it attract them, but then have it repel them? It's just special frequency. It's just
yeah, they can hear it put in a drop. As you said, it's different than the Superman thing. Superman can hear things, but if you use a high pitched frequency, it hurts him. It's the same logic.
I don't think it's like that, only because they are able to talk by the waterfall. In the first movie, they go by the waterfall, they scream out because they're allowed to, because the creatures can't hear them over the roaring waters. So
Yeah,
the
but the ocean's
ocean
not that
also
loud
makes some
compared to the
pretty
waterfall.
loud sounds.
It is
So
loud. I would say it's that deafening loud. You can't hear anything.
It is. If you're close to the water, I'm telling you, just even by Florida standards, not even during the storm,
Yep.
it's pretty constant. It's a lot louder than you think. Actually, it's
So them being attracted by the cans absolutely makes sense. And them getting on a boat, okay, let's say that makes sense. I'm just saying that they did not themselves learn how to get to that island.
You don't know that, bro. He could have had the oar going. He had the sail going. Everything. He'd smoke a cigar as he's going to the island.
An edit of that alien with a little pirate cap on top.
Yeah, so as I said, like, you know, yeah, he rode the current out, but the thing is that you think another one can't do that to the island though?
Well, I mean,
if that's the first one because the boat got loose, you know,
they get hungry enough, they'll try.
But like I said, this is a movie. If you played it as a game, you would have these jump scares in there, and to me, yes, I do find this kind of stuff frightening. So maybe you guys don't think it's a horror movie, but because there's no gore or aliens bursting out of the chest and like that.
No, that's not what makes horror. This movie's not suspenseful at all.
Yeah, it is.
I kind of disagree with that because it is suspenseful in the way that, oh crap, look, there's the alien and the deaf girl can't see him. Oops. It's not in a way like, oh my gosh, every corner, what's going to happen? That's one of its weaknesses. I don't consider it like a top tier horror film by any means. It's more of the suspense. It's a thriller. That's what it is. A thriller.
I think that's what I said. You know, well, here's the thing: when they get to the island, regardless of a creeper guy and all this other kind of stuff, we already know that they're going to make it to the island somehow, some way, for whatever reason. There's going to be a big standoff and end film, and let's see what happens for part 3. Return of the Money, whatever they're going to call it. The problem with this at the end is they had such a gorgeous opening sequence. With these long, great shots. It was really neat here in this like final battle where they, they're taking over the town, so to speak, or whatever, and everybody's going crazy. It's a nice little long scene there. But to me, the problem with it is again, I don't find these creatures scary, but they look so bad CGI wise, jumping around, I would rather have had scenes where people are walking and they see something moving, they see the hint of it. It really ruins. The more you show it, the less scarier it becomes, no matter how good it is. As
Pixel says, it's the PS3 graphics from Supergirl.
Well, I'll take your guys' word for it because that sounds probably pretty active here too. But I like the idea of them going to an island, getting more isolated. Of course, one makes you think, well, why didn't they just go to a big city and live in one big skyscraper where they could actually talk and figure things out? But again, I'm trying not to beat up on it for the sins of the first movie. Overall, I do think it's a better film. I still think, though, generally it sucks. It's not a good film. I think it's done better. I'm curious as to what they're going to do for a third one, but my last 2 real takes on it is that you could see this movie without even having seen the first one at all, and you would be all caught up. You wouldn't really be missing anything. But the second thing here too is that despite how predictable it is, it would have been a better first movie because we would have been emotionally invested.
I want to see this. What would be better for this movie? I know they're trying to keep it like, not too gory and stuff, but I would have loved to see when people get like, eaten by the monster, show it. If you're doing a rated R movie, do it. Show it. But
it's not. It's PG, isn't it?
Yeah, it's PG. It's PG. I think it's PG there. Yeah. So.
Yeah. So they're not going to change
it's like War of the Worlds.
If it was an R movie, I would agree with you. You could do some more things. And I don't mean
my gosh,
make it more
because I would love for the third movie to find out these are just the workers. These aren't the big bad aliens. Right. I want there to be a giant one.
Yeah, you're sounding like an old Harry Harrison science fiction book that has something like it, where you find out they're a hive mind and they're invasive and everything too. It's been done before, but not so much on screen. And it's just no. It's just I think that's a legitimate point. You can do stuff with certain themes. Like, really, did we think the baby was going to die?
Well.
Was there really any
the baby wasn't gonna die, but that's also you being a realist. It's just you suspending, your belief. Because you've seen movies before like this, and you figure because I feel like you wrote it off before you watched it, so you're like,
true.
You didn't like the first one,
right? The first one's horrible. This one's just.
So why would
bad.
why would you take anything in the second one seriously?
Because it's a different film.
It's the same person.
I would argue it's the same film, really.
It is the same film. It's part 2. It's not a sequel. It's part 2. Right. It's a 3-part story trilogy.
Allegedly.
Well, I didn't, and that's where I'm going to complain. Okay, we make it to the end of this. They each defeat one of their sound monsters.
I'll say that was terrible. Having at the same time both kids kill him. Like, no. Little boy who screamed, almost got everybody killed, almost killed a baby, does not deserve a heroic moment. He deserves to be killed. That would have been much better.
Yeah. Well, what I'm saying is, by the end of this, after we hear Somewhere Beyond the Sea for the 15th time in this movie.
Could they pick a different song, please?
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
I love that song, though, so I'm not really...
All they had to do was play Yellow Brick Road by Elton John. That would have killed me.
Okay, Englentine. No,
I'm not... Englentine loves it. I hate it.
Let's talk about the song.
Okay.
How did that song in any way help you feel more scared or terrified or anything in here? It was silly and dumb, and because it's silly and dumb, I understand it's a message, but why would you send a message that's goofy and cute like that? Or if you're the writer saying, hey, let's put this goofy, cute song in here too. That'll really amplify all the things that we want in this movie. Make it more tense, make it more scary, make it more whatever. It's not. It takes away from it all.
I remember when Alien Covenant was coming out, and the trailers kept showing, Take Me Home, Country Roads. It would always play. But in the actual movie, I don't believe the song actually plays because it's just the clip of the girl from Prometheus singing it as she's trying to head home. But it did add a creep factor to it. You're absolutely right. This doesn't add any kind of creep factor. I don't even think they showed it in the trailers.
The reason they chose the song over someone to sing it over because, it was a coded message. They don't want everybody. There are only 2 boats made to the island. They're limited supplies. Imagine the people out there are bad people. Figure out, hey, come here, sanctuary. They're going to get robbed and murdered.
Yeah.
So that's kind of why they chose that song. And remember, these people that are there probably aren't military. They're not. These are just regular normal civilians.
So it was coded in the way that, oh, look, you go somewhere beyond the sea, you're going to find us. That's not a great code.
I didn't say it was a great code. I said that these aren't military people putting the song up. These aren't, no.
My point about this ending, though, is they each defeat their monster, and it ends there. To the benefit of the first movie, you could end it right there. And you never have to see another one again. That it tells the full story right there and then. You suffer loss. They are able to triumph over the monster. The end. There's no indication that they need a part 2. This needs a part 3, and that's part of the problem.
And I do love the fact that the guy says, when this, what's going down, because remember, it was chaos. Everybody's running and stuff. There was an organization. The military fell. But they discovered that these monsters can't swim. So I thought that was actually kind of neat that they included in there because if all you see they discover they can't swim and nobody knew this the whole entire time, there'd be no reason to have an island of survivors there. Because everybody remember we watch zombie movies. You're like, just go somewhere where the zombies can't go because they can't swim water.
Agreed.
But you know what though? They can get pulled to the current.
They get pulled down.
Not necessarily. They get pulled down, but they get pulled up with the current too. To know how strong the current is, and where you're, if you're in the ocean or if you're in a lake or river, or whatever. It's been done before. But
what we need is a moat
with alligators.
Who needs the alligators? The moat will do.
Yeah, that's the problem with some of these kinds of things. Is that if you're going to decide to make it a horror movie. You got to make it a horror movie, and if you're going to be action, be action. If you're going to be a thriller, be a thriller. I think this movie would have been served.
Was this billed as a horror movie though?
That's what everybody keeps calling it, a horror movie, right? It's everything I keep seeing about
You
it.
sure
And
it's
also
not a
the
play?
first
They're
movie.
saying it's horrible.
Well, it definitely is horrible. It sucks, but it's an improvement on the first one, so they might get one right yet. So, look, the movie looks good. They
It's a horror
definitely,
thriller.
other than the CGI stuff to it, yeah, these division things really suck. It's a comedy horror. It's a whatever.
Well,
Um,
it made over $281 million on a
So?
$55 million budget, so it means
So?
obviously people liked it.
It means a lot of people paid a lot of money. There's no accounting for taste. How much it makes has nothing to do with its quality.
But you gotta
So-
realize that that's your opinion, though.
That's right, and that's why I'm
it doesn't mean
giving it.
everybody else hates it, though.
I agree.
Just like I say, everybody I liked it doesn't mean everybody liked it. But I
A lot of people like this. You know why? Because it is easier horror to digest.
Right.
Yeah.
It's simple. It's basic. It's escapism.
But,
People have been
yes,
cooped up and they want to
like-
go out and see a film that with
The-
people that they like. I
the-
get it. Doesn't mean it's a good
the only
movie.
part that really ruined it for me was the ending scene. It felt like a Spy Kids moment.
Yeah.
Brother, I'm there to help you. It's my sister. She's on the radio. It's static. That ruined it for me. And just like, oh my gosh, it was cool. There's cool scenes in here when she shoots the oxygen tank and like starts the creature on fire. But I'm thinking like, what's with the holes in the water filling up? We saw that in the first movie because the pipe that he ignored, and it didn't bother, hey, it's just gonna fill up with water if you stay down there and drown. Not only that, get electrocuted, but this part too in the steel mill, because they're hiding inside one of those a furnace, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
And because there was the monster could hurt him, chasing because the kid tripped over stuff because he saw the dead body. He stepped, because he was being an idiot. He caused the whole thing, and then the monster is trying to get through, so it caves in the hole, and she'd already sprung the sprinklers, so that water was spraying out from that when she caused the explosion. But not only that, there was a dripping pipe before that. My thing is that the dripping pipe would have drawn it there, But then again, maybe for all these years the pipe keeps dripping. Maybe it ruled out not being a threat because it's constantly dripping. There's nothing there. Because maybe they have not only just hearing, but they can see.
Well, they really paint themselves in a hole when early on, with the first movie, they set up these rules that really seem to contradict themselves and you can't figure out, or like I said before, it's either lazy or poor writing, or they think it's so obvious when it's really not when they do it. And unfortunately, like I say, something like that does carry on through it. And people argue about it, and it does make it a difficult watch if you care about that sort of thing. And some people do, and some people don't. So for me, to your point, RDV, from earlier, it does make it harder to allow yourself to suspend your disbelief and go, okay, these are the rules they're setting up with here. I can follow that. And I still kind of don't know what they are, even though they tried to expand on them here because it was done so poorly in the first film. But that being said, the things that they do in here, it is an upgrade, so I do think it's a better movie. I still think it's trash. And I think
there are stupid things I thought in here. Like, well, first of all, if you really want to be really logic about the whole entire movie, walking without shoes, you wouldn't be able to walk after like a mile.
Agreed.
But this movie here too is another thing too. When they're walking and they run the trail and they're gonna go back to the city, they run the sand's no longer, so they have to force to walk through the leaves. I'm like, walk through the grass.
Yeah, they're just stupid because the guy there is wearing boots.
Also, John Krasinski's not there either. So of course he's not there to remind him, hey, don't be an idiot. The dad probably was a smart one, obviously, because he was doing all the work on her hearing aid, trying to fix it for her.
Yeah.
So she's got a kid now again, and she's got to deal with these two people. And the daughter, like I said, she's really rebellious, and just trying to get them, hold the man together. It's just, the stress is getting to her. I would imagine it would be. So you're going to make some stupid decisions. But like I said, this is a movie I would love to see as a video game. Because I've played the games like Last of Us, and you have creatures and stuff like the clickers and all stuff like that. They travel by sound. That's how they locate you, echolocation, like clicking. These kind of remind me kind of a little of the clickers. You don't want to be anywhere near them if they find you. And these are stronger than the freaking clickers in Last of Us. So, like I said, I love suspense games like this. the pop-up. It's right. There was a jump scare. Yes, there's a few of them. The one being inside the train, I knew was going to be there, and the fact that she can't see anything, and it's not on top of the monster. Her getting to the front of the, because she's trying to she didn't want to walk around. She wanted to get through, she reaches in there, she grabs it, and then the dead body, falls and scares her because she can't hear it. So she just sees that corner eye. She knows, she freaks out. You jump with her. I mean, I don't know, Rob, if you jump, but I jumped. To be honest.
No, it's just too obvious.
And
no, really, it had zero effect. It wasn't really done well.
As I said, I don't watch a lot of horror movies and all that stuff like you do, and I think that's why you're desensitized.
Well, we'll close with our final thoughts here in just 1 second. But yeah, to kind of agree with you on that point. If you're young, I feel like this is a movie made for younger people. The standard for what you'd want to call horror, jump scares, or whatever like that is not high. For people that grew up watching a lot of films in the 80s, let's say, or even 90s, where you had a lot more of them, even if they were stupid hack and slash, and they weren't really scary, there was always the stupid jump scares and the dumb stuff or whatever like that. You are used to seeing them a whole bunch of times, but it's one of those things where, as a filmmaker, you have to say, okay, if I'm going to have a jump scare, how am I going to do it? How can I make it the most effective? Or, oh, this would be a good time to put a jump scare in, and then we'll have her do this and show her getting out or whatever. They're not concerned about the jump scare. They're just putting it in there. They're not trying to be creative or anything with it where you go, oh, God, that was a jump scare, but I see what happened there. And, I like what they did here. They didn't try to do anything with those things. And again, it also shows that if you show more of the monster, you have more of the jump scares, these kinds of scenes, you're going to be desensitized to it. So if they go to do a third movie, guess what? You're going to have the kids, you're going to have the mom. I guess maybe the mom gets killed off because she'll make her $10 million, and now it can be the kids' film and deaf kids and, deaf kid power and all that stuff too, deaf kid representation.
My money's on Glenn. Stupid mouth.
Well, you could argue that. I wouldn't be surprised too, because he's also male, and the way Hollywood is these days, I can see them doing that. But guess what? They're going to hide from somewhere. They might learn something else about him and all that. It's still not make any sense. But you've already seen the creatures. You've already gotten all these jump scares. There's really not much left you can do with them that makes it not even horrific, but even thrilling. And then it becomes, like, to your point, something like a Walking Dead or whatever, where it's really not about being scared. It's about being a survival movie, which isn't a bad thing. Yeah. It's just, don't call this a horror movie because it's not scary. But yeah, let's go around the horn here, guys, for some final thoughts on it too. Definitely, like I said, my piece, I'll go first. There's some great scenes in here. The opening gambit's terrific. It's an improvement over the first movie, but that being said, it's a big thumbs down for me. It's a bad movie. Not as trashy as the first one, but not worth it to me. But if it's something that you liked or you liked the first movie, I think you'll like the second movie just as much, or if not more. I could definitely say that. What about you, RDV? What are your final thoughts?
Final thoughts, and I just want to piggyback what you said. I do agree this is made for younger people because they said they know they know everyone's seen Halloween, they've seen the slashers, they've seen all that stuff, they've seen all the gory alien movies like that. So trying to compete with that is they weren't trying to do that because they know what it is. This is more of a family-friendly movie.
Yep.
Than it is, being so. It's not straight up horror, but it does have horror elements, the suspense, the jump scares, which are naturally part of the slasher movies. Mm-hmm. I started off like in the first movie. I did not care for the girl. I forget her name is. I think it's what's her name in here? Reagan is the girl's name in this.
Yep.
She just came off. I want to go downstairs. Dad, let me down there. So I'll go down there. And like there were parts in there like that was really good. Like the mom stepping on the nail on the board. And almost screaming out, and she's holding the baby and stuff. I think the monsters are in the house, suspense like that. Right. And then you come to this movie, it's like, you know what? At first, I was like, because she's got that smug face, the actress Millicent Simmons. I don't know how old she's supposed to be, but she gets that kind of like bratty face. And when you first meet her, and I was just like, oh my gosh, I just want to hit you, and I know, just
just
tie
an
you off.
Unfortunate way of being. It's like Dustin.
Yeah, well, I'm not, and I don't know if she actually is handicapped in real life or whatever. I'm applying that she is or looks away.
Really,
but I'm just saying she gets that the snotty look, like you'd see like in Spy Kids. I was just like, oh, this is like really, this is where it's going. And then and then you get the brother. Like I said, he's come walking through. He's he's already freaking out, and then and then he gets the bear trap on him, and he's about to scream, and he's like, oh, it hurts more. But the thing is, like, at that point, he's like, dude, if you keep screaming, you're gonna die.
Yeah.
It's like, and he's like, I don't care. He's just like, I'm like, well, teenager, I'm at the point, like, if anybody gets killed at that moment, it's gonna be him. And then the whole point, and you're watching this as through Cecilian Murphy's and all. He's got his rifle out. He's watching scope. I don't think did he set the trap, or has this been like so many people before, survivalists? People put traps out trying to hope to catch him out.
Implied that it's his trap.
Yeah, I thought so.
Wow, we don't really know. You think it is, but remember, said he just moved in there. He's not. He has a gun.
Fair point.
His wife is there.
His wife is dead.
Was there?
No, his wife is the corpse.
His wife was at his house.
He had to move her. That was the whole thing.
No, she screamed at the house. She was sick, and she screamed, so he had to leave her at the house. There's other creatures.
Well, you like the movie, which is, I think the key thing here. I'm in a minority.
Yes. It's the movie. When I first started this, there were certain things that I couldn't stand. The son. They kind of switched roles. Him being more annoying because we saw him scared he was younger in the first part. He's on the tractor. This movie, he was much more selfish, much more soft, and thinking like, and I don't know if because he's grieving or what, but he just drove me nuts. And then when the daughter took off, that's when when the movie picked up, because like as much as I want to explore the city, I love trains. so and then like I'm thinking like, okay, she's gonna crawl through a little thing in there next to suspense. Something's gonna jump out. Either you're gonna see a dead body fall down, or the creature's gonna again. And yeah, it was predictable. Yes, the creature did jump in, but it's much more nerve-wracking because she can't hear it. She's deaf.
Well, I agree with you. It can be a creative use. Yeah.
And I like that they did that. But I mean, then like I said, throughout the movie, I really enjoyed the movie. It's just that my only parts was the son, and then at the end, she's doing a thing, and then the son's like, don't worry, mom, I'm gonna kill it. I'm thinking like all of a sudden he's brave now. I'm thinking no, the mom should have pistol whipped him with the gun, and then she killed the monster herself.
Well, Pixel, your final thoughts.
My final thoughts is that this movie it definitely has some enjoyable things. It's not a bad movie. I wouldn't say it's a bad movie, but it is definitely not. If you're looking for some thrills, I don't think this is the movie for you. You can have a few moments where you're like, oh, it's getting intense, but it's all going to turn out fine in the end. And you pretty much know that now that John Krasinski is dead. Yeah.
Yeah, very safe kind of film, I think is the right word for it. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. Quiet Place Part 2. An upgrade, so to speak. Yeah, obviously very divisive movie for a lot of people. I fall in the minority today. That's fine, but I want to thank RDB and Professor Pixel for showing up and giving their feedback on it too. I was in the minority of the first film. No surprise I'm here too, but that's why we talk about it. So be sure to check us out as we're reviewing Twin Peaks Season 2, Episode 17. So getting ready to drop. We're also doing our action movies on Tuesday night. We'll be live with one, probably an 80s one here that we're going to decide on shortly. Let us know what you would like for us to cover. We'll be glad to take a look at it. So for RDV, Professor Pixel, and everybody involved here at the Xtreme Movie Show, thanks for listening as always. Good night and stay extreme.